Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nicolas Jonas. I am the head of the Global Report on Adult Learning and Education, and I am team leader at the UNESCO Institute for Lifelong Learning. On behalf of UIL, I'm very pleased and honored to be here today on the invitation of our partner GRALE for Latin America. And the topic of my presentation will be financing adult learning and education, an update from GRALE, and particularly GRALE 5. So let's start first by giving a global perspective on what is happening in the field of adult learning and education. Before starting, I wanted to highlight that, as you very well know, I guess, the financing of the subsector of adult learning and education is quite a complicated topic for several reasons. First, we are lacking a lot of data on this field, and it's not only because countries do not want to report on what they are currently doing, but it is also because they do not have the proper tools for reporting on what is the public what are the figures for public spending in adult learning and education. In most cases, all the public interventions and all interventions in general are really multi-sectoral, involving several ministries, several public authorities, as well as a huge range of different stakeholders playing key roles, particularly from the civil society, in adult learning and education. So, in a nutshell, if you do not have in place very efficient coordinating mechanisms, it's quite difficult to report on what is really happening on financing for adult learning and education. This being said, let's go back to what are the current international commitments in this field. If we look 15 years back about from the Belém Framework for Action that was adopted in 2010 and the recommendation on adult learning and education, we can see that if there is something that never changed is that countries commit to increase their investment in adult learning and education, but never give specific targets. In all the negotiations I contributed to, particularly for the Marrakesh Framework for Action in 2022, each time we tried to include precise targets in terms of percentage of public education budget dedicated to adult learning and education, member states removed it. It's quite difficult to have a concrete commitment. And this we can understand also. It's not just that they don't want to commit, it's also that it's difficult to commit to something on which you do not have a clear control and a clear tools in hand for monitoring. But still, states are making efforts. States try to enhance and empower the adult learning and education sector. If we look at what is the evolution of the changes on adult learning and education spending over the world, we can see that from GRALE 5, we learned that for about half of the country, the spending did not move, did not change on adult learning and education, and even increased in 1/3 of the cases. And for Latin America, it's more or less the same. We are in the same average, same trend. Now, if we look a bit more on the future, what are the plans regarding public spending? Do countries think about increasing, maintaining, or decreasing spending on adult learning and education? We can see that countries are a bit more optimistic, with half of them planning to increase their investment in adult learning and education. And here, in that situation, Latin America is a bit different, with only 35% of countries who commit or who plan to increase their investment in adult learning and education. So how much exactly do countries spend in this sector? Once again, it's quite difficult to get a concrete figure. If you can read on this graphic that 27% of responding countries just do not know how much do they spend. But if we stay at quite a high view on this spending, with just asking for a range of spending, normally we have an unset target, which would be nice if countries could dedicate 4% of their education budget to adult learning and education. But we can see that we are far from this target, with only 15% of responding countries who declared that they already reached this target of 4%. Another important aspect is to look at what are the goals of the public spending to adult learning and education. What kind of learners, what kind of programs do these investments really target? We can expect from the state not to control everything, of course, on adult learning and education, not to finance everything, but at least to play an important role in empowering some groups, some disadvantaged groups, by providing them with specific skills and knowledge who can help them to navigate in the society. So if we look at the targeting groups, the target groups of the public spending for adult learning and education, we can see that still over the world, youth and unemployed people are the main targets, meaning that most of the programs funded by countries, by public authorities, are dedicated to upskilling and reskilling. One point of concern is that some of groups who could be in need, strong need of education and learning, particularly indigenous people, older peoples, and peoples from minorities, are not so much targeted so far by public interventions and by public programs. And it's clearly an area of focus on which civil society organizations are massively present, and on states should be much more here to support the civil society organization and to organize this intervention for minority groups, indigenous people, and older adults. So I told you at the beginning of the presentation that the financing of the sector is quite complicated. And for sure, the states cannot play and should not, we could discuss about it, play the unique role of funder for adult learning and education. It's important to see what is the weight of other funders in the financing of adult learning and education. We can expect at least two big players, which are the private sector and international mechanisms, international cooperation through development agencies or international cooperation. So in the world, and in comparison with Latin America, we can see that there is quite a, how can I say, not a divide, but a difference between Latin America and the Caribbean region and the rest of the world. In your region, the weight of international cooperation and the weight of private sector are quite low in financing adult learning and education. This means several things. It means first that a lot of interventions rely still on public intervention. Secondly, it means also that a lot of programs for adult learning and education are funded by families or learners themselves. And I think there is a room here for advocating on the importance and impact on adult learning and education for the region, and how private sector should be involved as well in all these initiatives and should contribute, because it's also in their interest if adult learning and education can expand. As a conclusion, I wanted to come back very quickly on the quality of the data that we can get on adult learning and education. So we could target with GRALE about 208 countries over the world. For GRALE 5, we sent 196 questionnaires to countries, to member states, and we received responses or national report from 158, which is quite important, and this success was achieved thanks to the huge mobilization of civil society organizations. Almost all of them managed to reach the questions on financing the questionnaire. So it's already quite an achievement because the questionnaire was a bit long for GRALE 5. And we managed to get 100 responses from countries on what is a percentage or the range of percentage of education spending devoted to adult learning and education. But when we speak about very concrete percentage and not only a range, we managed to get only 60% of responses from member states, and out of the 60, only 53 were updated and were covering the period of GRALE 5, which means in conclusion that out of the 208 potential countries over the world, we have good and updated detailed data for only 1/4 of countries. And we don't know, or we know very few about the rest. And this is why at UIL we are launching now research to estimate what is a part of the public spending going into adult learning and education. And the idea is to come up with a common methodology and to do it and to consult at national level to manage to get once for all very good and comparative data, which could be the basis of an advocacy effort to increase and improve, I would say, the public investment in adult learning and education. This is the end of my presentation. Once again, I'm sorry not to be here. I would really love to engage with you in a debate on the current state of financing of adult learning and education. But I hope you found some interesting ideas through this presentation. And should you have any question, please send them to the organizer, and I will reply to you in 1 week for sure. And I wish you a very good discussion, and I hope to see you very soon. Bye.